First playable hand, I look down at Queen, 9-8, single suited under the gun in a straddled pot. I call, gets all the way back to the small blind who makes it 45. Both the big blind and the straddler call, and I make the call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 4-3-2 with 2 hearts. The original raiser bets 130. Player next calls, then player to my right pushes for about 500 total. The original raiser pushes all in, and the other player calls for less. So they're going 3 ways to a run out. Turn brings a king of hearts, bringing the front door flush. River brings another 2. Player to my right turns over 6-5 for the flop straight, and then the original raiser shows ace-ace 6-4 with the ace-4 of hearts, so he's going to take it down with enough flush. Here look down at king, queen, jack 3 double suited on the button. There's a couple early position limpers. Cut off to my right makes it 30. I call, small blind calls over to the big blind who makes it 120. Cut off calls. I decide to call, and the small blind calls. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes king 10-5 rainbow. Small blind thinks for a little bit and pushes. Big blind follows suit and pushes as well. Cut off to my right makes the fold, and here I think based on the SPR I just have to go with it. So that's what I do, and we're going 3 ways to a run out. Turn brings a pretty good card for us, 2 of spades, so giving us a flush draw along with our open-ended straight draw. River gives us some help in the jack of clubs, and I turn over my hand and we look at the early position player's hand. He has king, queen, 10-9, so he flopped top 2, and me hitting my jack gave him the straight, so he's gonna take it down. I go card dead for a while, over an hour into the second buy-in, until I look down at 9-8, 7-5 double suited in a straddled pot under the gun. I make it 40, gets all the way to the button who makes it 130. Small blind calls to me, and here I kind of considered just pushing over the top, but I thought better of it and just made the call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 10-10-9 rainbow. I decide to push, and the button calls and the small blind calls for less. So we're going 3 ways to a run out. Turn brings a 3 of spades, giving me some additional equity. River brings another 9. So not sure if someone has a 10 or not, but I turn over my hand and we're good. So happy to triple up here. Here look down at ace, king, queen, jack, single suited in the big blind. There's a couple late position limpers. Small blind checks his option. I make it 25, and the button and the small blind call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Up comes king, queen, jack, all diamonds. When it checks to me, I bet 35, and both players fold, so we take it down. Here look down at ace 9, 8-7, single suited in the big blind. Folds to the button who makes it 20, folds to me, and this is typically a hand I don't call with unless it's single suited to the ace. Obviously that's not the case here, but the player on the button is a good person to go heads up with, as he likes to make a lot of loose calls. So I call, and we're going heads up to a flop. Flop comes jack 7-6 rainbow. I check, my opponent bets 45, and I make the call. So we're going heads up still to a turn. Turn brings an 8, and I'm not really sure where I'm at, so I bet 55 is kind of a see where I'm at kind of bet, and he thinks a little bit and makes the call, so we're still going heads up to a river. River brings a 10, I check, and my opponent quickly checks back. I turn over my hand expecting to be good, and my opponent turns over 9, 7, 6, 5, so looks like we're chopping it up here. Here look down at king, king, jack 5, single suited in the hijack. There's an early position open at 20. I call and the button call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 9-4-3 with 2 hearts. When the original raiser checks to me, I decide to bet 35, kind of see where I'm at, maybe take it down, and the button calls and the original raiser folds, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings an 8. I consider going for a bet here, as you know he's most likely on a draw, but there is so many cards on the river that are going to beat me. I just decide to kind of slow down here and check, and my opponent checks back, so still heads up to a river. River brings a 6 of hearts. I check, and my opponent quickly checks back. I say 1 pair, my opponent turns over his hand. He has 10-10-5-2, so he flopped an open-ended straight draw and a flush draw and hit both on the river. Here look down at 10-9, 8-8, double suited on the button. Under the gun makes it 20, folds to me, I call, and one of the blinds calls, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Up comes 10-3-2 rainbow, checks to me, I bet 35, and only the original raiser calls, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a king of diamonds, giving me the backdoor flush draw. When my opponent checks to me, I want to keep putting the pressure on his potential 1 pair holdings, and I bet 75, and he thinks for a little bit and folds, so we take it down. Here look down at ace-ace 10-2, single suited under the gun. I make it 20, and we get 5 callers, so we're going 6 ways to a flop. Flop comes jack 9-2 with 2 spades. When it checks to me, I check. Checks to the late position player who bets 120. Early position player calls, and I fold. Here, look down at ace, ace, jack 8, single suited on the button in a straddled pot. There are 3 limpers to me. I make it 65, and shockingly, everyone folds. It's not too often that you take down the pot in this game after 3 limps to a single raise, but we accomplished the impossible here, and we're taking it down. Here, look down at 10, 9, 8, 7, double suited in middle position. There's an early position open at 20. 1 caller to me, I call, and there are 3 other callers, so we're going 6 ways to a flop. Flop comes 9, 7, 2 rainbow. When it checks to me, I bet 110, and we get 1 early position caller, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings the queen of spades, giving us the backdoor flush draw. When my opponent checks to me, I bet 300, and he quickly folds, so we take it down. Here, look down at queen jack 10, 9, single suited under the gun. I make it 20, and we get 2 late position callers, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace jack 10 rainbow. I check, and both my opponents check, so still 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 5, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. I bet 45, and 1 player calls, so we're going heads up to a river. River brings a jack. I bet 50, and my opponent folds, so we take it down. Here, look down at king jack 10, 6, double suited on the button. There's an early position raise at 20. Folds to me, I call, and one of the blinds call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen jack 2 with 2 hearts. When it checks to me, I bet 45, and we get 1 caller, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings the queen of diamonds. When my opponent checks to me, I bet 85, and my opponent calls, so we're going heads up still to a river. River brings a 10 of hearts, and when my opponent checks to me, I'm trying to think about what hands I could potentially get value from. I don't believe he called with a straight draw on the turn. He probably has at least a queen. He definitely could have the nut flush here. I don't really think he's going to call me with a lower flush, so all those things considered, I just check back. I turn over my hand, my opponent shakes his head and turns over the queen of hearts and mucks his other 3 cards, so we're taking it down. Look down at ace 9, 6, 5, single suited under the gun in a straddled pot. I limp, 1 late position limper behind me. Next player makes it 60. There's 4 callers to me, I call, and 1 other call behind, so we're going 7 ways to a flop. Flop comes 8, 7, 2 rainbow. When it checks to me, I bet 225, and only the small blind calls, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a 4. My opponent checks to me. He only has about 130 left, so I put him all in, and he quickly calls, so we're going heads up to a river. River brings a pretty bad card in a 9. Obviously now a couple straights beat me, but I turn over my hand, and my opponent turns over his. He has jack 9, 7, 3, so he flopped a pair and a straight draw, and river 2 pair, and we're going to take it down. Here, look down at queen, queen, 6, 6, single suited in middle position. I open a 20, and we get 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 9, 7, 4, action checks through, so we're still going 4 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 3 of clubs, giving me the backdoor flush draw. When it checks to me, I bet 35. I do block, obviously, the straight and picking up the flush draw now, and we get 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways still to a river. River brings a king. When it checks to me, I check, and the late position player checks as well. Late position player says 2 pair and turns over king 5, 4, 2. So he turned a straight draw and river 2 pair, and he's going to take it down. Here, look down at jack, jack, 9, 9, single suited in middle position. There's an early position open at 20. I call, a couple late position callers, and 1 of the blinds call. So we're going 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen 9, 5 with 2 hearts. When it checks to me, I bet 100, and only the big blind calls. So we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a king of clubs. When my opponent checks to me, I decide to pot control and check back, as even though I am blocking jack 10, definitely could be a possibility for him. So I check, and we're still going heads up to a river. River brings a 4. When my opponent checks to me, I decide to go for some value and bet 100, and he thinks for a bit and folds, so we take it down. Here, look down at ace, ace, 7, 5, single suited in the big blind in a straddled pot. Early position player makes it 40. Folds to me, I call, and the straddler calls, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace 8, 8 with 2 clubs. I check, and both my opponents unfortunately check back, so still 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings a deuce. I decided to check again, hoping that somebody's going to take a stab, but they don't oblige and check back, so still 3 ways to a river. River brings another 8. Can't slow play anymore, obviously. I bet 50, and both my opponents fold, so we take it down. I played another orbit after that aces hand, didn't really get much to play, and I decided to rack up.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for 1,000, out for 2,070. As always, feel free to comment below. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. If you haven't already done so, check out my previous video. It's the biggest stakes of my life. I play 5, 5, 10, 20 against some crazy maniacs. You can find that up here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.